22 trainers this week on Mail Call Mondays. Mail Call Mondays is brought to you by Modular Driven Technologies. If you need a chassis system for your precision rifle, check out mdttac.com. I'm John McQuay with 8541 Tactical, and this is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. Welcome to Mail Call Mondays, and I know this is not Monday, but we actually had a total solar eclipse on this Monday, in case you missed it. So I was out with the family checking out the eclipse and enjoying the first total solar eclipse I've had the privilege to actually witness. For those of you that weren't able to get out, I did actually do a time lapse and I posted it up on my personal YouTube channel because it really doesn't go along with the whole precision rifle thing. So we'll leave the link to that down below and you can go check that out if you want. But it was a very, very interesting experience. I was definitely humbled by it. Anytime I get to see one of these marvels of nature, it really is amazing to me. So for those of you guys that got to check it out and actually were able to see the total eclipse, you know what I'm talking about. For those of you that didn't, I highly encourage you, if you're able to do so, check out a total eclipse at some point in time in your life. Now let's get on to the show. Now the rifle I have sitting in front of me is a Ruger 1022. Now obviously it did not come like this. It originally started out as just a regular 1022 carbine with the little small stock on it and the tapered barrel on it. And we incrementally kind of upgraded some things on it. We had actually planned to do a series and do somewhat like the budget precision build where we showed you the changes going along, but we had some issues that kind of sidetracked that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back and I'm going to talk about the way the trainer is currently set up and why I've got it set up this way. Now before we do that, let's talk about the purpose of a 22 trainer for a precision rifle competition shooter. A precision rifle competition shooter really needs to get out and do a lot of positional practice, barricade practice, shooting from various different positions. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to build that position rapidly, get into position, and then hold that position through recoil and be able to spot the impact of our round. Now, the best course of action, if you just had a mound of ammunition and a pile of barrels, is to shoot your competition rifle for all the training that you do. The best course of action is to have a trainer that is exactly duplicating your competition rifle. Well, a lot of us don't have piles of ammos or piles of components or piles of barrels or the time to go through and assemble all that stuff because we're not shooting professionally. So in that case, it's better to have your match rifle that you shoot in training occasionally and then have a training rifle that uses a cheaper ammunition that still allows you to go out and accomplish the training goal. Now you're not going to shoot the training rifle every time because if your training rifle is any different than your competition rifle, you still need to make sure that you're training on that competition rifle. But there are certain skills that we can build on a trainer rifle and we can save that barrel life and save that ammunition going through our regular competition rifle. So that is the reason that I have built up this rifle here. Now this rifle is not the greatest trainer because it doesn't exactly duplicate any of the rifles that I use in competition. But what I use this rifle on is to enhance the fundamentals or to train the fundamentals, and that's sight alignment, breathing, trigger control, etc. So if I was going to take this out and shoot this in for instance, a prone position, if I was just going to shoot dot drills, this rifle, because of the slow-moving bullet and the relatively long barrel, it's a 20-inch barrel on here, this rifle requires that I maintain that proper trigger control, I maintain that follow-through if I want to get the most accuracy out of it, because any kind of movement while that bullet is still traveling through the barrel is going to affect your shots downrange. So if you start jerking the trigger, you're definitely going to notice it on this guy. Secondly, if I decide to go out and do barricade practice, I can still utilize this rifle in order to get stable on the barricade and hold that position through the trigger press and then practice moving through the different barricades. That is one of the reasons why I have a heavier stock on here. There are a lot of really lightweight injection molded stocks for the 1022 out there. We have a Bell & Carlson fiberglass stock on this because it adds a little bit more weight to the rifle. The same thing with the Green Mountain Bull barrel that I have on here. It adds weight to the rifle. So it gets a little bit closer to the weight of a competition rifle. My competition rifles are not super heavy, but they do have a little bit more weight to them than your average 22. So we can use this for barricade practice, you can use it for positional shooting, and again, it just gets you into those positions. Now, one place where this rifle doesn't work as well is it doesn't have barricade stops set up on it anywhere like my full-size rifles do, my competition rifles do, and that's something I may look into improving in the future. Putting a barricade stop on this where the magazine well would be or where I would normally run a barricade stop. That way when I run this guy in barricade drills, then I actually have a hard stop to press against like I do with my competition rifles. The optic is another place. Now ideally I would have the exact same optic on this rifle that I have on my competition rifles. But I also run a variety of different optics on the different competition rifles that I use. So it's not that big of a deal for me. But if you're a guy that has one specific rifle that you're competing with and you want to set up a trainer, again, you'll probably want to go to the expense of putting that same optic on your trainer. Usually will bump up the entry cost quite a bit. This is an SWFA 3-15 by 42. It is a first focal plane optic. It does have a mil reticle in it and 1/10 click mil turrets on it. So it is a very similar optic to what I have on quite a few of my other rifles. So there, you know, the optic works the same. I don't have to worry about if I'm transitioning between targets and if I'm going to longer range targets with it, worrying about if it's a second focal plane or a first focal plane. It's a first focal, it works just like my other scopes. Coming back here, we do have a Victor Company cheek riser set on here. It just screws down into the stock and it has various height spacers so you can stack the spacers up and get your comb height right where you need it. One drawback of the Bell & Carlson stock is it does have a relatively low comb when you are running optics, so you do need to build that up quite a bit. The Victor Company spacers are great because they don't move, they don't have any squish, they don't go anywhere when you've got your face stuck on here, and they are about the perfect width for the Bell & Carlson stock. It'll flare out a little bit when you're tightening it down, but it gives a nice tight fit down here that you're not going to worry about hooking it on anything and pulling it off. You can, of course, achieve the same thing with using riggers tape and foam. It's just not going to look as nice. And there are a bunch of other options to raise your comb up. This is just the one that I chose because it works great, and Victor Company is a great company to deal with. The Bell & Carlson stock overall, this stock would be an absolute perfect trainer stock if you shoot the Bell & Carlson M40 stock on a Remington 700. It has the same butt hook, same pistol grip angle, about the same reach to the trigger, and the same forend. So if you were shooting that stock, this is a great option for that. Now, if you have a specific rifle that you're trying to build a trainer for, the key things there are you want to try to get the same length of pull, you want to try to get the same pistol grip angle, and about the same reach to the trigger. Those are the key things, and then the forend, you can kind of build up the forend or add attachments or whatever to try to mimic them. Now, one of the biggest questions that I get about this rifle, since it is a trainer, is that it's a semi-automatic rifle, whereas most of the competition rifles you see out there are going to be bolt guns. So why am I using a semi-auto rifle as a trainer for bolt guns? Well, I found out that if I spend a lot of time training on a 22 bolt gun, 22 bolt guns have a very, very short bolt throw. You just lift that bolt and it's just back an inch or two at the most, and then your next cartridge is being chambered up and you're ready to go. That for me can instill some issues. I was shooting 22s quite a bit for a while and then switched back over to my centerfire rifles, and I found that I had a tendency to short stroke the bolt. I wouldn't run it all the way back until it hit the stop before I drove it forward. So to kind of alleviate that, I switched over to training with a semi-auto 22, and then I utilized dry fire to train that bolt throw feel on my full-size rifle, because dry firing doesn't put any wear on your barrel. It doesn't cost you anything on components. The one place it can cause some wear on is it can wear your bolt stop out sooner. I've seen rifles that have cracked the bolt stop pin or broken the bolt stop or peened bolt raceways. So it's just something that you need to be aware of. But that's normal wear and tear on the rifle. Expect that you're going to have to fix that over time anyway. So I can use the semi-automatic rifle to work on positions, and then for my bolt operation, then I can use dry fire to work on that. So it's kind of like breaking the skills up and utilizing different tools to hone each one of those skills. Now we'll come back to the main reason for a 22 rifle, not just the 22 trainer, is these things are ridiculously fun. Now that the 22 ammo has become a little bit more available, and especially matched 22 ammo is more available than the bulk stuff, then they become more economically viable and more enjoyable to go out and shoot. Plus, if you have a new shooter, they've never shot scoped rifles before, you can grab this thing, and it is a full-size rifle. It's not a kid's rifle, so they'll be comfortable getting on it. When I initially got on the carbine version of this, I felt all scrunched up all the time, but now that we've got a regular adult-size stock on it, it feels good. So you can get a new shooter on a scoped rifle and get the basics of scope theory down, how to actually drive the rifle, where to position your face so that you're not up on the scope or you're not going to get scope bit, and there really isn't any concern over recoil or getting scope bit. Now, one thing you'll notice here is I have a regular target muzzle on this rifle. It is not threaded for a suppressor yet. I may do that at some point in time. I may either replace the barrel with a threaded barrel, or I may go ahead and have this barrel threaded. But it wasn't a huge concern at the time that I built this rifle up for two reasons. One is this barrel was on sale through Brownells, so I got it a little bit cheaper than I normally would. And then secondly, when you suppress a 22, it is very, very, very difficult to use a shot timer in your training scenarios. You usually have to run a bare muzzle, and even a bare muzzle 22 rifle shooting match ammunition will sometimes have problems triggering a shot timer. So I went ahead and left the muzzle bare on here. It is obviously not a loud rifle shooting standard velocity 22 match ammunition. But it will still trigger the shot timer most of the time if I set it up here towards the fore end or towards the muzzle. Whereas if I put the suppressor on it, it's not going to trigger the shot timer. I could probably crank it all the way up to full intensity and still not get the shot to trigger the shot timer. So if you're actually going to use a shot timer to try to improve your movement, try to get things smoother and quicker through courses of fire, then a threaded muzzle isn't really a big deal, because it's you're not going to run a suppressor on it. Now, I will tell you that a suppressed 22 rifle is one of the most enjoyable rifles that I have shot, but just in this instance, it just doesn't work. Now, one last thing I'll talk about on here is we do have a kid trigger in here. So we went ahead and set this up, modified the trigger group just a little bit. It is a little bit better than the Ruger BX trigger. It is much, much better than the factory trigger that came with this rifle. And that is one place that you definitely do want to spend some money and spend some time and effort, regardless if you're building up a 1022 or if you're going with a Savage Mark II or any of those other rifles out there. You want to make sure that you put a good trigger in it. A lot of times when we go to these lower price trainer rifles, the trigger gets neglected. Well, if you start to put bad habits or reinforce bad habits with a poor trigger, then that's going to translate over and you're going to have some problems with that big nice rifle no matter what kind of trigger you put in that. So try to get the trigger pull weight about the same, try to get the feel about the same, and definitely spend some money to put a good trigger in your rifle. That way that you're not reinforcing bad habits with your trainer that will carry over to the full-size rifle. Now, one of the last things I'm going to talk about has absolutely nothing to do with trainers, and that takes this guy and moves it from trainer status to match rifle status, and that is the National Rifle League's new 22 Rimfire League. This has interested me greatly, and we'll leave a link to that down below. But the NRL has now come up with a 22 league, and this is kind of, if I was going to compare it to something, I would compare it to Steel Challenge, but for 22 long rifle. So the gist of it, after I read through the press releases and the rules, etc., is that NRL will publish the course of fire for the month. And they have a sanctioned target package that the clubs will have to purchase, a steel target package. And each month, the NRL will send out a course of fire. And the course of fire will be based upon that standardized target package and some paper targets. And then match directors will set up the course of fire. So every NRL 22 league across the country will be shooting the same course of fire on that month. That's really cool because it will allow you to compare yourself to shooters from across the country, but it also trains you on similar stages, and then it also takes a little bit of weight off of match directors. They don't have to be as creative. They don't have to come up with something new every month, which that can burn you out pretty quickly. So they just take the target package or the course of fire package, they set it up, and then you run it. And it is designed to be run on ranges that have 100 yards of distance. You don't need more than 100 yards. So that opens up a huge number of ranges that this can be shot on. And since it's shot with 22 rifles, there's less concern over the noise. There's less concern over backstops and impact areas. So it will really bring the more PRS type shooting, barricades and movements in that to the 22 area. Now, I've heard a lot of clubs say, oh, we already have 22. Well, my local club has 22 shooting, and it's either bowling pin or it's bench rest. It has nothing that really equates over to precision rifle competition type shooting. So I'm really excited to see the new NRL 22 League, and I'm hoping that it will get off the ground and really get some traction. And again, we'll leave the link down below, so if you want to run something like that at your local club, then check it out. The sanctioned target package is from JC Steel Targets. It is on the NRL store right now, and it is really not an expensive target package. It might be expensive if you're looking at just to buy it for yourself, but when you spread the cost out over a club, it's really a reasonable target package, and it should be something that will last for quite some time. We're not sponsored by the NRL. Nobody paid us to say that. We're just letting you guys know about what's out there right now. So definitely use the link below and check that out. I'm hoping that we will get some NRL leagues going nearby here so I can go out and take this guy out and shoot it. This would be shooting in the open class, but they also have a production class, and the production class really calls out some very low-cost rifles, and the 1022 is one of them. Obviously, this one is modified enough that it would go into the open class, but you can get out there with a relatively inexpensive 1022. I've got a Savage Mark II that would drop right into the production class with no problem whatsoever. So definitely go check it out, read the rule book, see if you've got a 22 rifle that will fall into their classes. And if you guys get a chance to go out and shoot one of these matches, please come back and leave a comment and let us know how it went for you. Well, that is about it for this Mail Call Mondays. I know this is a little bit short one, but we're getting it out late in the week, so I'm trying to keep it short and get it out to you guys quickly. As always, if you have any questions or comments, you can send them to us at 8541tactical@gmail.com. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, you leave in the comments section below or send it to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you like the video, please make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And until next time, get out and shoot.